Texts for the air.
Like fish immobile in a glass tank, they stare at the foolish
Lady
movies.
Genevieve Goodsword or Gossett, who comes from an ancient and highly respected line known to my soul.
Once met Kipling with a group of young people at his place of bird watch.
They seem tired of life in a way no fish can be, save dying fish.
Copywriters, being men, more often than not out of touch with reality.
Somebody
as we know
asked
it.
him about the British in India.
As though this incessant viewing of foolish movies was depriving them of even...
A black Austin hearse with old-fashioned spoke wheels.
Stroking a large comatose dog that lies half buried on
You
her...
want to know how we got the British Empire?
The windows of this top-floor flat, through which a Luftwaffe bomb...
It was one of those dingy, overcast London days that occur at the tail end of autumn. Intimations of later foul weather coming off Dogger Bank in the long months ahead. In the muggy London Zoo, high in their foul cages, the great condors were shifting about. Nothing sadder than the Strand on a Sunday. Reaches of Mother Thames stank of diarrhea. The open mouth of the tube was foul. A man was calling out on behalf of the Catholic Evidence Guild. Brassy sounds came from the Salvation Army band on Victoria Embankment Gardens near the flat of the man who told me his dream of death. He was 3 men. The weather was cold. Why, this is hell, nor am I out of it.
Like fish immobile in a glass tank, they stare at the foolish movies. They seem tired of life in a way no fish can be, save dying fish. As though this incessant viewing of foolish movies was depriving them of even curiosity, that force which makes the young to grow. In the foolish movie, the movie of the day, one of many, always the same. One more day of all the identical dull days spent in that stale-smelling viewing room where they congregate. Now it is the old story of the father and the son. The story of the ambitious father who cannot let his son be. The father is played by Malden and the son by Perkins. The father played for the famous Boston Red Sox. See him deteriorate, I beg your pardon, demonstrate, with all the zeal of prosography, the grip, the stance, as he faces the pitcher, to demonstrate most unconvincingly, standing and holding the bat limply in a fashion thought to be resolute, nothing deterred, just standing there facing the unseen pitcher. Perkins. Perkins and Malden play son and father respectively in the foolish movie. Both foolish in their respective ways, Perkins and Malden. Remember Charlie Craven's body swerve? They say he once scored with his effing backside.
Well, I don't remember him, but I've heard of him, yes.
Joe Robinson burst the effing net at Arsenal's bleeding ground.
Don't say.
Remember Jack Waterman, Charlie Craven, Cockles Appleyard, Great Bristol?
A black Austin hearse with old-fashioned spoke wheels and running board stands in pouring rain which will not let up before the Flintstone Baptist Church on Muswell Hill. No mourners gather and the church door remains closed, though the hearse is packed with flowers. The weeping printer has slipped into the Rathskeller off the premises and is dosing himself with mild and bitter in the gloomy public bar, looking about him furtively with scorched eyes. Dracula's black hearse glitters outside like an infamous joke as the mourners gather about the closed church and stare up like fish. Tell me, why do Baptists favour Flintstone, grey pebbles from the seashore, in their oddly shaped places of worship, so unlike the sombre grey granite of high Anglicanism with their uplifted spires in perpetual memory of Luther's eternally upraised admonitory finger, the gesture of a stiff rationalist ever hostile to Roman Catholic hocus-pocus.
This is the wharf, happening? What sort of risk?
I come here on Friday nights. What do you do?
He went into the nest just as the 1914-18 war broke out.
He's a right nutter, he is.
Has the cricket season started?
Oh, yes, indeed. The cup final has intruded into the cricket season.
Lady Genevieve Goodsword, or Gossett, who comes of an ancient and highly respected line known to Mysore and Delhi and the hill stations in the life before our time, wife of the decorated poet, snobbish as a witwer, with a pendulous bust and a hairstyle that makes her long face a mask, sits in an armchair stroking a large comatose dog that lies half-bedded on her lap, of a species not readily determinable. Absently she pulls at its matted hair, palping the beast as though it were her worry beads, and speaks of the rights of vanished traditions in a stiffly upper-class voice, faithfully nice. Sir Wolfe is thought to sleep with his teddy bear, Archway, but would much prefer to chain himself to area railings of period lampposts, or even period pillar boxes, symbols of an extinct past once glorious, or rope himself to trees in parts of the city given over entirely to the modern automobile, and manner made popular by the suffragettes. Master of the softly spoken aside, lover of the commonplace, to say the least of it, at least in his poetry, desk hand signing over secluded quads, Gregorian chanting in school chapels, boys in distant playing fields engaged in rough games in the rain, avid beer drinkers not yet pickled in old bush mills, lovers of the Worcester sauce bottle placed squarely on the spotless linen tablecloth, good breeding, a purebred golden retriever savaging its fleas, a pedigree bull scraping its neck on a gate, a beetle in the morning tea, a tiny cola, large as all England. Of all this, Sir Wolfe is greatly enamoured, doing good, or with a will towards doing good, which is not quite the same thing, in the style that smacks of curate's vaguely useless ways of men in cassocks walking in glebe-lands and offering the soft hand at the rectory gate, softly imparted advice to subdued parishioners, to the sound of a quiet bell tolling in a vision of clouds over the wheel, the memory of a bottle of Worcester sauce triumphant on the now slightly stained linen tablecloth, the softly spoken rebuff, dead England, and inward turning trouble. Wearing gloves, stout walking shoes, a sturdy walking stick, a decent hat, the old trusty gabardine stumbling forward, always with a kind word. Now walking swiftly and resolutely towards an unseen destination. Searching behind furniture for the object lost or mislaid, fetching up heavy sighs, drawing aside drapes, all period stuff, the living room alive with dogs, faithful animals, dangerous to strangers, but good when you know them. All family heirlooms pickled in old bush mills. The dining room choked with chintz, the bedroom a familiar terrain of unknown battles, well-beloved objects, decanters, archway tucked up for the night. Now wearing gloves, hatted and gabardine, the lost object retrieved, a pipe. Inane expression of grim resolution, the light rain ceasing to fall and gabardine discarded for light tweed overcoat, thrown casually over the shoulders as a cape, rubber galoshes, sometimes known as gumboots or overshoes, from the time of spats. Striding forward now courageously into the teeming rain, followed by a pack of dogs, expression of the most absolute determination fixed on a flushed face, the unlit pipe clamped to the jaws, to the pedigree bull glaring hotly over the gate, the wheel obscured for the nonce and drizzle, onslaughts on the commonplace pathogenic bacteria, malign tumours. Nothing. On. Or quite paralysed from the waist down, ever the brave display, handkerchief and breast pocket, leather through the elbow, flower for the buttonhole, fixed expression of the most absolute determination, pipe clamped in the jaws as if struck by lightning in South Africa, or was it an injured? Perhaps Cape Town, or Krishnapur, Kimberley, or Mafeking it might have been. I see a heavy van revolving sedately in coloured bar waiters and scarlet rat catchers, sedately placing little bills of salted peanuts on an oaken table beside a gin fizz, taking a quietly spoken order, slowed by premature, quite crippling rheumatism, the English disease. Behind it all once the lost herds, the holy cows, the untouchables, remittance men with drink problems, to put it mildly, the long lines of the destitute descant song, surely not there. The lost goldfields, the afflicted ones of another colour and creed, the bulwarks of a Rhodes or a Kruger, men of destiny with public parks named after them, goldfields now in other hands, their wise policy-making now, land settlements, deeds of possession in banks, all finished now, given once with the left hand, the hand that wavers, horrible opposites. Most unctuous rendering of Sari Marie at closing down time, with setting sun over rolling wheatlands that stretch forever, but now reduced to a tiny pinprick and then darkness. But now the mug of Forlicks and the flood of wordplay or fatuous alliteration calculated to stun the clever mind and obscure the meaning, if any, or worse still, distorted, granted any meaning there in the first instance. Common carnation in the buttonhole, toppers at Ascot, straw boaters of the Oxford-Cambridge race, river craft of the most various kind, hooting in open derision. Gomley upsetting wake disturbing the bank, toffs at Lord's, strawberries and cream at Wimbledon, wisteria clasping itself in an almost human, almost painful way on the river wall at Richmond. So much for the Guardian's middle pages.
I once met Kipling with a group of young people at his place at Burwash in Sussex. Somebody asked him about the British in India. "You want to know how we got the Indian Empire," he said. "I'll tell you. The British arrived at a given place in the midst of squabbling tribes, and wherever the British were, the tribes could have their breakfast in peace and go to sleep without fear. The British moved to a further place, and once again there was security and peace. And so it went on. We couldn't help it."
Do fish make good mothers? Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Take a number 102 to the Cock and Bull. Then a W4 or 27 will do. An affable company of boozers are swigging cider by the ponds. Rough fellows are roaring truculently by the tube station. The umpires are offering England delight.
Train departures between Windsor and Eton Central and Yatton, as also to Worcester and Grud Hill, will operate with skeleton staff due to industrial dispute. But the services between Evesham may arrive from 19 to 23 minutes earlier, while the Slough train will be delayed until 8:01. But for our Didcot customers, an extra commuter service will be laid on. Further industrial disputes are expected to disrupt service.
Without more ado, I left the station and sprang into a stationary double-decker that was moored outside, just then on the point of imminent departure for destination unknown. It turned out to be Mortlake Garage, where I descended, feeling the need for a sobering drink, plunged into a local hostelry. Where who do you suppose was laughing his head off in a corner but the Baptist printer, drinking wallop and short ones in the gloom of a public bar that was all mirrors? A small news sheet was set out before him, open at the page devoted to the nude of the day, and there she was, all spread out, looking deadly serious and naked as two plums. A sullen-looking baggage that is the approved erotic style now, the suggestion of vibe and whip.
You know what's happened, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I do.
I've fallen in love with you.
Yes, I know.
He was devouring the paper with gusto, well accustomed to getting the hang of the odd morphologue employed by the yellow press, a kind of passacaglia or montage of capitals in heavy type, devoted to local and regional and then European and global calamities. The Baptist printer was breathing through his nose, eyes like saucers fixed on the crossword puzzle.
Blimey, mate. I've just got the windowsill of a ship.
I stared at him, at a loss for a word. Who was he, this mysterious Baptist printer who certainly got around, staring before him now with compressed lips? Now he wrenched his hands apart, which he'd been holding convulsively clasped, and drawing the paper to him, commenced making notations in the blank squares, as though another greater power guided his crabbed, ink-stained fingers, setting off with absolute confidence amidst its manifold tomfooleries, as if impelled.
Truth was never slummier and called for litter in the setting. Leafy reveries, a thing of the past.
I'm not here.
Hang on. Can you hang on a wee minute, please?
It's a long one forward by Harvey and a terrible mess there. And here's Temple streaking through. Is this the third one? A shot by Temple. A goal! A beautiful goal by Everton by Temple.
That's it, Len.
3-2.
Come and sit by me. And do up your flies and all.
Hang on.
Sometimes I, not too complacently, stare out of the front windows of this top-floor flat, through which a Luftwaffe bomb passed clean during an air raid. The windows are ranged along all one side of the living room, which is the end wall of this block of flats, this being the fourth floor. It's really the rear of an old galleon. And I can tell you that I've seen some pretty strange sights. One afternoon, whom did I espy but little Curly Hoyle, gliding through the traffic that circles the public toilets of the Broadway, a public service used by drug pushers for making contacts and as a sort of open-air gymnasium for colored youths practicing karate chops and kicks outside and indeed inside the women's section. Did he remind me of dog, hare, or little boy about my own son's age, and his best friend, his only friend in all the world? In short, was he chasing, hunting, or being chased, hunted? Or was he perhaps a mixture of all three, the hunter running, the hunted fleeing, or the little boy lost, running after the others? For, caught up in some dream and far away, surely he did not know himself. Dog, or hare, or little boy following, pursuing, or a mixture of all being the fourth state. or in the fifth state, more confusing than the first, a mixture of all four preceding. Dog, hare, boy lost, hunter found. Observer observing, like a fellow attempting to play the piano with his nose. A treat for the chronically bored. He moved, wraith-like. Was this the sixth and last state, the wraith? Through this region of incessantly circling heavy traffic. A place of old people's homes in the side roads of what was once country. A senior citizens' twilight zone with hospices for the dying, all under the kindly auspices of the Borough Council. In a little while, his innocent fancies will harden to something coarser, become belligerent. Little Billy Hoyle grown older, in bother boots and with head shaven to the pluck, a soccer supporter. Arse rules. Will set about the attack upon this relatively green haven of parks and ponds where Dr. Johnson once walked by the stand of beech saplings. Here, the ponds proper to a seafaring race, who now fish for minnows in stagnant or dead water by sewage plants and gasometers, fishing patiently, and as like as not by night, for I have seen their lights glimmer under the umbrella. Below the defunct palace, by the abandoned racetrack where no horse has run since the start of the century, now a grassy area for training police dogs. By the empty palace, empty of royalty, that is to say, for Indians hold banquets there and the middle-aged tango on Sunday afternoons, watched by a worker in overalls who is ostensibly cleaning the stone lion's mane and appears to be combing it. Hoyle will begin his defacing attack with trusty aerosol gun hidden in his seersucker, squirting his hasty message on all likely surfaces. Hoyle rules. I see the word embryo painted in black on a clapboard fence near the Employment Exchange, and Alec the copper is a spider-loving bleep, scrawled on the roof of a bus bound for Barnet and Leighton Wimps. Thug rules is scrawled everywhere. Thug rules and punk rules and the suck my, do my, cane my of the disgruntled brigade who operate by night. The tit, bum, cry become by some curious alchemy, paps, oceans, nature. The instinct behind it all, baffled human nature at odds with itself, become pure. Even Curly's hole rules okay. Elms Road had by some simple adjustment become Bum's Road, and a desperate non-patriot had squirted on the side of steps below the dead palace, puke on the Duke. But below it all and above it all and through it all, sometimes in the oddest places, Hoyle rules.
An end-of-season cricket game at Crouch End. Celebre Araldo Dramaturgo. The faithful, by definition, need no conversion. Last weekend, I witnessed a ghostly end-of-season scratch game, in every sense of the term, that would surely have gladdened your cricketing heart. The event took place at Crouch End. They now have a new pavilion, almost as charming as the old one. The 1920s structure, gutted by vandals, presumably soccer yahoos, opposed on principle to cricket. They even burnt down the temporary structure that replaced the original and broke into a nearby pavilion to make a bonfire of the bats. Cricket is an odd game, more difficult than appearances suggest, like chess, which it somewhat resembles, in that the attack can be hidden. It must suit the English nature, ceremonious under certain restraints, its logic coldly applied. A ritual performed in silence by males dressed in white, nowadays wearing Greekish visors. Such obduracy appeals to the Anglo-Saxon mentality, is it not so? The cricket season follows the annual migrating habits of the swallows, whom the Spanish called golondrinas, beginning and ending when the air, nimbly and sweetly, recommends itself unto our gentler senses. Their arriving cries delight us, cutting like secateurs through the April air. Not too much of that with the League Cup yahoos. Their season begins and ends with a ritual killing. Alec Waugh recalls Surrey playing Sussex at the Oval in the summer of 1914. It had been a sunny morning, but the sky clouded over in the afternoon. At 5 o'clock it began to rain. It seemed appropriate that the last Saturday of peace should end like this, with grey skies, a light rain falling, and stumps drawn early. Our dreams cannot last long. Someone sang sweetly. 'Twas a fine afternoon in early October, the mellow Rowlandson oak and beech turning to autumnal colours around the boundaries, and a Pentecostal calm in the air. Lovely batting weather. I counted only 7 fieldsmen, and none of them robust. A tiny spinner was tirelessly delivering full tosses to a heavy batsman who changed ends when he had scored a single. The commentary box was sadly deserted, nor did I see the florid features of that face which for me heralds summer, Brian Johnson of Down Your Way fame. It was a dreamlike scene, sir. The umpire was lame and held the score book to his chest, as a charge hand might a scratch pad or clipboard in a factory where nobody works anymore. He answered all appeals, no matter how dubious.
How was he?
With upraised finger, a stabbing of the air that would have done credit to the late Herr Hitler emphasizing some oratorical point, or even Emperor Napoleon himself, of whom it was said by Chateaubriand, I think, that all his gestures wiped everything off the table. At every turn he had to create facts. The umpire seemed anxious to keep the game going at all costs, this last game, and the fielders were also batsmen. It was an all-fielding team playing against itself. Sufficient to say the traffic to and from the pavilion was brisk, despite the obvious poverty of the attack. The double of Cecil Beaton stood at square leg, wearing a floppy sun hat. The same haunted face, same small, delicate gestures, who presently took a turn at bowling slow, long hops. A grossly corpulent medium pacer, how he permitted himself to get into that condition I do not know, who resembled to a marvellous degree the fabled Billy Bunter of Blackfriars, then took a turn, but was accorded scant respect by the only fit-looking man on the field, who enjoyed a brisk knock of 50-odd, including 3 sixes in 1 over. This against an erratic paceman with a queer green stain on flannels, none too clean in the first place. What with the tawny bronze leaf colours, the rare strokes of some suavity recalling the Nawab of Patodi, but here the static figures, not all that togged out in flannels, I regret to say, and a general air of benign incompetence. The umpire's upraised finger, all was a sober joy to behold. A bit of the old Maecenas, and no mistake. Vita dum super est bene est. What? While one's alive, all's well, nothing but well and fair, into the wind's eye. How deuced pleasant, celebri dramaturgo, to watch the shadows lengthening, shoulders, no matter how incompetently, being opened for the last time, the vapor trails raveling out like white barbed wire in the last Saturday piece of this summer-like October day. The last yowls, those curious rhetorical imperatives, the last well bawled, sir, ringing out, and the final loud guffaw from the pavilion, which up till then one had supposed empty, for the batsmen came down to field as soon as they had unpadded. Not forgetting the gentlemanly hand-clapping, absolutely de rigueur at these polite affairs, a small, coloured batsman who looked well set was run out attempting a quick one that was simply not on. Acorns were thick in Queen's Wood, sign of the end of the world. In this autumn of conkers and the squirrels careless of hoarding their nuts, I thought of you. You should have been there, a well-knit figure striding to the crease with a Middlesex cap drawn down in a threatening boycott-like manner over the hooded eyes. Discipline on the field was lax, but who cared? The figures had become effigies, emblematic, playing, or rather say, conducting themselves at a game whose rules and quaint terminology had barely changed in the course of its long and pleasant history. At least 5 matches were played at low tide on the Goodwin Sands in the 19th century. A game of detailed records, the keeping of records, which is not quite the same thing, which undermines boasting and must thus suffer a strong appeal to the most modest English character, being itself a form of hyperbole. Records, after all, cannot lie. There can be no appeal against the umpire's upraised finger. Cricket, a game played in the mind.
Which end, Alf?
That one went clean through him, as if he had a hole in him like a Henry Moore statue.
Which end
are you betting, Alfred?
Such punctilio. An off-drive from the batsman with his eye in was a quicksilver flourish on the flute. Arlott should have been there, sipping muscadet and recalling great figures and times of the past, never to return again. Hobbs and Sutcliffe, Compton and Edrich, Bose and Verity, Bradman and Ponsford, the quick and the dead. A line of Heine came to mind. You may know it. Ich hab im Traum geweinen. I hath in mine dreams gewept might be the more favored English version. Of course, the Froggies and the Huns couldn't play cricket for nuts. It's not in their natures. Believe me, ever, the admirer of those early stage pieces of yours, landscape and silence, would that be correct? I have the honor to sign myself, Amory. P.S. When are we going to see a bit of action in one of your plays?
Vaults of bridges. I think of a great metal bridge by the railway station of my old home. A sense of grit and the long reverberation of plates as the train went by overhead. It was a place without law. I felt that even then, obscurely. No one was really responsible for anyone else. Only a few walls were left of the castle Chaucer had hoped to build. The Lord's home had been sold by politicians.
Blown spume, ruddy faces, thick ears, nothing daunted, briny smells, kippers and herring, shelly seafood, stinking tides, seaman stench of the great heaving ocean, porpoises portend storm, provisions waxed scant, howbeit true in every particularity, and such was these poor wretches' extremity in cold and wet to have no better sustenance than their own urine for 6 days at a stretch. Tars puking their guts out from the rigging, gulls a long way from home, jolly sea shanties in the steamy forecastle, here today, gone tomorrow philosophy of a livelier time. A time of sea kale, jugged hare and cherry tart, the sailor's hornpipe, the vigour of Rowlandson, cuckolds all awry, the old dance of England. Bankruptcy's up 30%, a new record. One shouldn't be surprised. And one more species of butterfly, pale blue, extinct. I shouldn't wonder. Another wasted day, did I hear you say? Oh, no, sirs, never, never a wasted day in the strange, withdrawn world of the fish. A pearl of days. Like fish immobile in
Texts for the Air, an elegy for England, was written by Aidan Higgins and performed by George Parsons, Jean Trend, Alan McClelland, John Livesey and Francis Jeater. The director was Piers Plowright. And you might like to know that Texts for the Air is one of the subjects for discussion in Critics Forum next Saturday evening at 5:45 here on Radio 3.